we're making bread at home now. Lately, there has been no greater joy than a fresh loaf of bread out of the oven. And I want you to have that joy too. So the goal of this video is not perfection. It's more so to demystify the whole sourdough process so you and I can learn and make mistakes together. Hello, welcome back. I started making sourdough just a couple months ago. I don't know everything, but I am eager to share what I know so far. I got my sourdough starter from the farmer's market. This is going to be my second feeding for each of these. So essentially what this means is 1 part sourdough starter, which is 15 grams, 2-part flour and 2-part water, so 30 grams. This one, since it's 1 to 3 to 3, is going to be 15 grams of starter, 45 grams of water, warm water, and 45 grams of bread flour. Okay, so we are weighing in at 224.8 grams. I do have like this little notebook over here. This jar weighs 149. I'm gonna take out enough of this for this volume to equal 165, and then I'm gonna re-add the flour and the water. I've been trying to use the same container that it's in and simply discard it as opposed to dumping it, but you could do it either way. The only reason I'm testing 2 different ratios is because there's just a whole world of sourdough. I'm merely just curious to see like what it yields. Traditionally, I had been using a 1 to 2 to 2.5 ratio. It looks super thick once you first feed it, but then I'll show you what it looks like tomorrow around feeding time too. I like to try and scrape the sides as much as I can so that I can see how much it's risen after the first day. This was right after the feeding, and this is 10 hours later at about 1 a.m. Technically the next day, but that night. And this is the next morning at 9 a.m. So 16 hours after the initial feeding. You can see it's deflated a lot. They're each very bubbly too. Most of these tests that I've done with the sourdough starter have yielded insignificant differences. Maybe because I love bread so much, but yeah, this is the 1 to 3 to 3, this is the 1 to 2 to 2, and this is the activation level. So we're going to do a 1/2 cup of starter. The recipe that I'm using came from the same place that I got the starter. They gave oh, this is perfect, wow. This is just enough. With the starter, they gave this cute little note that I actually leave on the refrigerator. It basically breaks down the feeding ratios and the times and just reminders them like how to do it, which was super helpful. This one. The fact that there's barely any sourdough starter left in these containers is also why it's important to feed it a little bit more the day before you want to make bread, just so that you don't come to this day and realize you don't have enough fucking starter. Then I'm going to add 2 cups of warm filtered water to each bowl, and we're gonna stir it up until it's like a milky white color and all the starter's dissolved. Now I'm adding in my bread flour and salt. The bread flour is 3 2/3 cups and 4 teaspoons of salt. I got this tool on Amazon, of course, and we're just gonna stir it into a shaggy dough. The recommendation is to use your hands, but I've tried that, and I feel like using my hands before the dough starts to become one with itself is just very messy. Now we're gonna do the same thing to the other one. So what I learned after making this mistake was that adding the salt with the bread flour for this initial 45-minute rise speeds up the fermentation process and does not allow the dough to like properly do its thing. And you will see exactly what I mean by that. Then I'm going to cover both of them with a damp tea towel and leave them on the counter for 45 minutes. Our 45 minutes is up. This is 1 of 4 rounds of stretch and folds. I have some water right here in a little bowl, a tip that I acquired along this journey of bread making is to use water when it's super sticky as opposed to using a whole bunch of flour. So you're really just gonna like pick it up, stretch it out, and fold it over exactly as it sounds. And just go in the bowl as you're doing it. We're gonna put the tea towel back over it after we're finished with the stretch and fold. And I'm gonna do this one. Now I'm gonna put the tea towels back on the bowls and come back in 30 minutes and do it all over again. This is where you start to see some of the consequences of adding the salt with the bread flour. The dough should be a lot thicker. As I'm doing the stretch and folds, it should be holding more tension and become thick as I'm doing it, but it stays sloppy. And this is gonna be stretch and fold number 3. Definitely a little arm workout. I really need to learn how to stretch and fold with my left hand so that I can even out the muscle. Because doing this for 2 minutes is actually no joke. And the towels are back on for 30 more minutes. Another 30 minutes is up and we are on our last round of stretch and folds, praise God. I do like to re-moisten the towels that go on top of it so that while it's rising, it doesn't dry out. There is nothing more humbling than going through 2 hours in stretch and folds, rising the dough, mind you, recording all this because I think I'm really doing it correctly, only for the dough to come out like this. A mess is an understatement. In addition to my first mistake, my second mistake was thinking I could undo the first mistake by getting a good rise in. So what I did was I put that joint in the oven with the oven light on, which is actually a really good recommendation, but not to keep it in there for all 5 hours. And this is the result. But what am I gonna do after all that work I put in? Throw them away? No. So I pushed through, I guess is the only way to put it. I added a bunch of flour to the surface, tried to build some of the tension that was deeply and utterly missing throughout the entire process, and really just make the most with what I had gotten myself into. Did my little hot dog fold to the roll up to the pinch over. I put them in my bread proofing basket and put them in the fridge overnight. The oven is preheated to 475. I'm gonna pop this Dutch oven inside the oven. That was redundant. I'm gonna pop this Dutch oven, but that's what it's called. It is redundant, but that's what it's called. I'm gonna pop this in the oven for 30 minutes. It needs to get hot before it starts to bake with the bread. And I'm gonna take one of my beautiful loaves out of the fridge. Very exciting. Anytime I bake bread and the cribs just smell like a bakery, always a good day. You gotta rub it with love. This is my scoring knife. The purpose of the score is so that while the bread is baking, it doesn't explode. It gives it a spot to release moisture, and as it's rising, all that food science kind of shit. Also, when scoring, always go a little bit deeper than what you think you should. And that is gonna be something that you'll learn with repeated effort. But once it comes out of the oven, that score looks really deep, but it's not gonna be as deep as you think it is. And this one is more of a decorative score, so that is why I didn't press nearly as hard. And we should do one on the other side for balance, right? Okay, she might be cute. Okay, a moment for the score. We're gonna take that hot Dutch oven out of the oven and drop her in there with the lid. Does anyone still use kitchen timers and not just the timer on their phone? I love a good kitchen timer. it's just like, the sourdough is gonna be in the oven for 25 minutes. Then we're gonna take it out, take the lid off, and then bake for another 20 minutes. Not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. And on to the second loaf. On to the analysis. Both of these loaves are very flat, but for the pile of dough that I had to work with, I'm surprised it rised at all. Since I started making sourdough, I keep a little notebook to keep track of all of the things I've tried, the different ratios of the starter, the outcomes, how airy the bread is, how soft it is. There are so many different factors of consideration, but as we all know, the ultimate test is the taste test. Despite all the mistakes that I made and the many areas for improvement, the outcome is still bread. I will share a video of how it looks when it's done correctly, but until then, take a lesson from me and don't let perfection be the holdup. The joy of making your own bread is waiting. This is exactly what I thought would happen, and they are both delicious.